And yeah, and then just a second from now, I'm going to go and start the whole thing. Yep, that looks good too. Yeah, this is exciting. Very exciting. Very cool. Okay, should be just about ready. So I'm going to go ahead and patch it down, John. We'll get going.
Doc Rivers continues to time and time again not get it when it comes to getting. Oh! Let him play!
You bet one bone to win 19. What site do you use where you can actually bet $1?
They let you do 50-cent bets.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, literally, like he dropped Superman down like the drain, comes out, like, God damn it, Superman. I don't know, honey. I don't know where he got that from.
From Los Angeles, this is Dave in the City.
Part of the DITCOW Sports Network.
Now, here's Dave Medina.
Good evening, sports fans, and a pleasure to have you back here for the Big Football Show. Good to have you with us from the Dave in the City studios at the home of champion Southern California. And we hope you enjoyed our first fantasy football show with Jerry Will earlier tonight. If you missed it, it's on the replay is on YouTube, and you can check it out at youtube.com/DITCOW. As you can this show tonight, where we are going to be doing our next round of football picks. We were off last week. We hope you enjoyed your time away. We missed you though, and we're back, and we're ready to tell you about what was just an unbelievable weekend of football all over college football and pro football. Upsets for Bama, number one, and the Chiefs, who have been really the best team in the AFC over the last 3 years. I mean, they both lost on this weekend. So that just gives you a feel for what was happening all across football. Just an incredible weekend. We have John with us. We have Andy with us. We have Tommy sending the picks via the text, and Ron as well sending picks via the text. And it should be a good time. So Andy will be joining us at some point very soon. John's with us now. And we got to take a look at all the chaos and break down what really was just a manic Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday in football. So we hope your picks went well. I'll tell you what happened with us. And now let's recap all this chaos. Let's hit it. Football picks week 7. Sorry for that delay. I was just trying to figure out where all the scenes were here. I've been a little rusty, but let's go back to it. If you're watching on YouTube, you can take a look at the results from last week. Ron making a move, 2-1-1. Now, the move is just to get closer to the pack. He hasn't moved any places in the standings, but 2-1-1 is a good result because it was a crazy weekend, and it's hard to really get picks in a weekend like that. John was in second place at 1-3. Andy was also 1-3 for week number 6 in the picks, and I was just wearing the golden sombrero that weekend. I'll tell you what, though, I got hosed on one of those games. There's no doubt. And John knows it too. John knows it too, because that affected his as well. 0-4. We're looking at you, Texas. Unbelievable. Coach's guest picks went 3-0-1. He had a terrific weekend in the guest picks, and that gives you these standings after 6 weeks. It is John still in first place at 15-7, and Dave in second place at 13-9 despite the 0-4 week. Andy's in third place at 12-10, and Ron is 11-10-1 on the season. So though he didn't move any places, he's right there next to Andy in the standings. The guest picks the guest picks so far this year are 10-10-2, and thanks to Coach, the guest picks look pretty respectable. So all in all, there were some definite highlights in this week, and in the case of me at least, some massive lowlights. But we're getting into it. Let's get back to business, and let's welcome in our panel. And right now it's John. And John, it's just so good to see you again. I hope your week was good and your weekend was good as well. How's it going tonight?
What's going on, Dave? Yeah, thanks for having us back on. Good. Looking forward to seeing Andy as well in a few minutes. Yeah, definitely was not on the right side of some of those beats that you were talking about. That Texas game, man, I'm sure we'll get into it more in depth. I just do not know how they didn't cover 3.5 with that game. It was just one of those weekends where like I was always just crawling back to try to get back to 500 on the day basically for the picks. So you're going to have some of those throughout the course of the season. So you just got to stick to how you're picking the games, and eventually it'll the breaks will go your way, like they have been. So we'll try to get back on track with some winners this week, but definitely a fun week of games to discuss overall.
Yeah, from a juice perspective, you couldn't ask for anything more. It was really an incredible week in football, all over on every level, really. I mean, it was just tremendous. So Andy has just joined us on the Zoom chat call. Let me just give him a minute to join the chat. But it was great to catch up with him. Great to catch up with him here in La La Land, and we certainly did see a classic in LA between the Browns and the Chargers. So Andy, if you're with us now, good to see you again. How's it going tonight?
I don't know who you're talking to, but if it's me, I'm just getting on. Just getting on.
It is.
Am I on?
Andy, it's been quite crazy, but at any rate, upsets all over the place in sport, and it has been really interesting. Yeah, it is good to see you back, Andy. We can talk a little bit about what we were up to over the weekend, but certainly just so much juice, and we'll start with the NFL juice over the weekend. NFL juice was really quite memorable. I mean, last week's action started with a pretty good game between the Rams and the Seahawks, which the Rams ended up victorious, and everybody was remembering the name. Everybody was remembering the names of the receivers of the Rams on that night. It was quite a game. But then, Russ got hurt, and they played Geno Smith for the rest of the game. It was kind of interesting, and we'll see if I don't know if I think the Seahawks could weather the storm with this, but it certainly is a big loss, losing your best quarterback for several weeks. So we'll see. And then it continued with just a crazy game between the Bengals and the Packers, and then it continued more into the late afternoon slate, where the game that Andy and I were at the Browns versus Chargers, that game was just just bananas. It ended 49-42, just crazy. And then it had an even
47-42.
Oh, did I say? I keep forgetting about that 2-point conversion.
Funhouse.
They didn't get the 2-point conversion. It was 47-42. 47-42. Good call, Andy. And then at night, it ended with that just wacky, bizarre game at Arrowhead between the Bills and the Chiefs, which the Chiefs lost going away, actually. And it had a 90-minute delay, which was very interesting for Andy and me because we were at the bar watching that. And then it had just a brutal call in there, too. But let's go to John first and get your thoughts on last week's action. I mean, there has been so much juice. And Texas got one of the worst beats of the season, too, in the Red River game in college. Oh, I'm sorry. We're getting to that later. But on the NFL side, I mean, what did you think of the weekend, John? It was really quite an interesting day in Sunday action in football, and more the same on Monday when the Ravens rallied to beat Indianapolis. So let's get your thoughts on last week's action, John.
Yeah, I mean, that window of, I think it was like 3:45 to 4:15 was just pure insanity on the Red Zone channel. I don't know if you guys where you were at that point in terms of your activity in LA, if you were at the stadium or if you're at a bar, and man, it was just insane. Obviously the Packers Bengals game featured 5 straight missed field goals, 3 by Mason Crosby. The dude had not missed a field goal in 2 years, and he misses 3 in a row, like each one easier than the next. Like, that game gave me the most stress as a Green Bay fan that I've had in a while, because really they dominated the game for most of it. The Bengals' only touchdown in the first half was a fluke broken play where Burrow just throws it up for grabs. And the safety looks like he's about to intercept it, and somehow goes right through his hands to Chase, who scores a touchdown. And their only drive in the second half was at the end of the game when it was 22-14. And, they had a nice drive down the field. And I don't know why the Packers were like playing off. They were playing prevent defense up 8. I didn't understand that, but regardless, the Bengals score and they get the 2-point conversion to tie it, and then all the craziness from there kind of started. But even before then, I mean, Green Bay, they should have put them away sooner with they just couldn't score in the red zone, which is pretty atypical of Rodgers and LaFleur, what they've done so far together. And then it just all hell broke loose with the missed field goals. Thankfully, mercifully, that Crosby finally made one. I did not agree with the decision to kick once he had missed 3. Because I remember a couple of years ago in Detroit, there was a game where he literally missed 5 times in the same game. Like there was like 2 extra points and 3 field goals he missed. So he was kind of having one of those games. But I will give a huge shout out to Zach Taylor. This guy is a complete fool. The Bengals have a good team, but he does not know what he's doing. Anybody with half a brain could have seen that the Packers were just completely gassed on defense and could not stop anything. And this guy, as soon as they got into field goal range, he settled for a 57-yard field goal. And then in the overtime, he's running up the middle on 2nd and 3rd and 1, settling for a 49-yard field goal. Like the Packers corners were playing 6 yards off the ball. Like they could have definitely been more aggressive and gone down the field. So we will credit part of that win to Zach Taylor, he is not a good NFL coach whatsoever. I will continue to fade him going forward for sure. So yeah, that was a good win for Green Bay, 4 in a row now, and on to Chicago this week. So they can get on a nice little streak here in the NFC. So while that was going on, you had Detroit and Minnesota, a game that was just completely dull. They might have showed 2 plays the entire time on red zone, and all of a sudden, the Lions are down 10. They get a touchdown or they get a field goal. All right, here's the Lions kicking a field goal to make it with 1 possession. You know how Scott Hansen has to give you a sorts of make the game look more interesting than it really is.
I've heard that. I've seen that.
Yeah, right. And then they cut again. Oh, the Lions down 1 possession with the ball, and they stop the Vikings. They get the ball back. They score. And then they go for 2, like Campbell, big balls, Campbell there. He goes for 2, they get it. So they're up 1. And then I get same thing as with when they played the Ravens. They leave in the middle of the field wide open on these 3rd and long plays. I just don't understand why an NFL team would do this. Blitz the quarterback. I don't know. I don't get it. But Cousins gets them within range and the kicker drills it. So that was an entertaining game and another kind of heartbreaking loss there for the Lions. A game that I still don't understand how it went against our direction. I had Carolina -3. I think Andy did. I think mostly everybody did. And they're ahead the whole game. I'm looking at the box score right now. It was it was 16-3 in the second quarter. And somehow all of a sudden, you look up and then the Eagles are winning 21-18. I guess there was a play, I missed this, where there was a fumble in the end zone and the Panthers couldn't fall on it. And then I guess that was kind of a turning point in the game. Darnold did not play well towards the end, getting picked off. I mean, their offensive line just couldn't hold up. So that was another disappointing loss that I had. I mean, that pick was looking pretty good for a while. The Texans Patriots game surprisingly had a lot of juice. I thought this, before the game, you have the Patriots ruled out, they're literally down 4 of their offensive linemen, their starting offensive linemen. They're coming off that emotional game against Bucs. The Texans, they're terrible. And, you figure the New England defense could at least show up. It was the perfect under game. And then here we are in the first quarter, there's 21 points scored. Davis Mills actually looked like a good NFL quarterback. So, we may have to make a note of that. But the Patriots are flat as a pancake. Thankfully, they ended up coming back and winning by 3 for some teaser scenarios that probably many of us had going. So that was another crazy game. The late window, I'll let you guys document that LA Cleveland game. San Fran, Arizona, I had San Fran. That was another game that didn't kind of go in my direction. I mean, Arizona really didn't play that well. Shanahan, every time they showed that game, they were going for it on 4th down and missing it. I think the Niners were 1 for 6 on 4th down. It was just crazy. I just don't – some of his in-game decision-making, very questionable, and they really could have covered that. But, I guess it just sets up a nice number for us to fade Cliff again this week, which we shall be doing. And then, yeah, the Sunday night game, I mean, I don't know if I want to call it like a passing torch in the AFC, but you could just the way the Chiefs have been playing, their defense is just so bad. They couldn't stop anything Buffalo was throwing at them. And, it just the Chiefs, even the Chiefs offense, it just still doesn't look right. Like Mahomes is just running for his life. They're just playing schoolyard football on every play. And you just can't, like, I see it enough with the Packers. Like when Rodgers stays within the construct of the Flores offense, like taking the check downs to the running back, taking the quick slants, like the offense is incredibly efficient and they go right down the field. When he starts to play like this hero ball and he's looking like throwing 30-yard bombs down the field, like it just doesn't work. And it's the same kind of thing with the Chiefs. So, they'll probably be there at the end. They're just really struggling right now. And, I don't know what their answer is, but definitely an impressive win by the Bills. And then the Monday night game, just what an utter collapse by the Colts. I mean, just good for those of us who had the Ravens at the last leg of a teaser. Lamar Jackson's just a one-man team at this point. I mean, you deal with his fumbles for the fact that he puts up about 500 yards on his own. So, that was a pretty refreshing loss for Indianapolis. And, the Ravens, they just seem to play some entertaining games every single week. So, yeah, probably it's just crazy. These NFL games, every Sunday, it's just the margin between these teams is just so thin. You just get some amazing games and finishes every week. I mean, the primetime games have been unbelievable. So not surprising to see the ratings are way up this year compared to last year. To get fans back in the mix, it's just been a great start to the season. So, we hope the juice keeps going. And, it was a great weekend for sure.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it was nice to be a part of it. And, I the only thing that was kind of a bummer is that Andy and I missed a lot of the early action for a number of reasons. But that wasn't the big deal because the game we were at was just insane. Like, it was just great. So I'm going to give it to you, Andy, and we'll give you your thoughts on last week's action. Certainly, we can comment on the 4:00 Eastern slate. And then obviously the clear game we can comment on is that Charger game, which was just one for the ages. It was really great. And so I had to correct the score. If you're watching on YouTube, I had to correct it on the slide too because for whatever reason I put 27. I meant to write 47, not 27. So I put the 4 over. It's like a clown. Anyway, Andy, let's get your thoughts on last week's action.
Yeah, Dave, you need like a podcast assistant or something.
I do.
That.
It's been busy.
Yeah, man. It's a first world problem. First, let's rewind the clock back to Thursday night. Quick hit on that Seattle Ram game. Not sure if LT56 is in the podcast chat. If he is, what up? But I have to call him out on his typical Geno Smith remark he made on the board when Geno threw the pick in the last couple minutes of that game. That actually, it wasn't his fault. Eli style, not his fault. Lockett fell. I wouldn't blame that pick on Geno Smith. That was a weird game. Depressed Seattle with Wilson making his finger look all sort of a big finger of a big finger. So now, uncharted waters for Seattle. That was as good as they looked in the first half, they were bad in the second half. Ron's not here, but if he is here, and if I had seen him on the board earlier this week, I'd have to be like, called it, with Jamal Adams being a, malcontent, all about me type of guy. And kind of came to fruition last Thursday. He was just getting exposed, didn't have a good game, getting beat. And then after the game, he was blaming others. So not the greatest performance out of Seattle with or without Russell Wilson. No excuses. It's the NFL. You play who you play. Rams play. Robert Woods just caught another pass while we were talking. I mean, God. And so I had Cooper Kupp on a fantasy team, and Kupp didn't get as much production. I got Robert Woods. I had him on the bench. So, yeah, all about me, fantasy problem. Ooh. But, yeah, that was a good Thursday night game for the most part. The first world problem about going to these NFL games is, you miss out. And then to compound that, the days of just trying to find a simple highlight package is next to impossible because you're not going to find it on ESPN anymore. And even like ESPN.com doesn't have great highlights. I guess I could have gone on my phone and watched like the condensed game on the Sunday Ticket app. But all this to say, did not see the Cincinnati Green Bay missed field goal after missed field goal after missed field goal. We were walking to SoFi and had a money line parlay plus 250 on New England Patriots, Green Bay Packers, Carolina Panthers. John highlighted all those games for the most part. Here I am, stupid clown, walking to the stadium, starting to lose service. And I'm like, well, the Patriots pulled it out of their fanny, like getting texts from random Mongos who are also gambling, like Crosby missed, Cincinnati missed, Green Bay missed again. It's like, all right. And then finally, like, Green Bay won. And I'm in my head, last thing I checked was like Carolina had this game in the bag. Like, it wasn't even a thought to be like, well, let's make sure Green Bay or let's make sure Carolina finished the job. And I texted, I was like, well, I had this 3-team parlay. And my buddy was like, oh, yeah, Carolina's done. I'm like, what do you mean Carolina's done? They were in command. And then Darnold just threw a pick. And like, well, how? Darnold threw a pick, but weren't they up 10, like 10 seconds ago? So that game bothered me. If I was watching that, I'd probably still be tweeting about it. But that's a bad game. That's a bad game for Carolina. The Eagles they're not a good team, but I don't know. That's gambling. So yeah, the 10 a.m. / 1 p.m. window had a lot of juice, and I can't and I we all feel left out, Floyd included, and Dave probably.
Oh yeah.
It's just
well, the bar. Look, the bar was not helping, right? Like we cannot find a bar around that stadium that has like all the games. Like we were like, I would assume that every bar had it, but it's clearly not the case. So it is what it is. It's okay. I mean,
it's okay.
Yeah,
we'll find it. You'll find it, and I'm sure there's probably other places around there that has Sunday Ticket.
Yeah.
Or,
yeah.
Did you notice when I was taking a piss at some point? There's is the NFL studio building or NFL Network building across the street from the stadium because they have the network on this huge. It basically took up like a quarter of a side.
Oh, you mean on the way in? Yeah, I did see that. I think they were doing the red zone, weren't they?
So they,
that's an idea.
Watching San Francisco, Arizona highlights, but yeah. So 10 a.m. games are crazy. John documented it pretty well. The game we went to was just wild. I still think Cleveland kind of choked. They're up 27-13 at one point. They went 3-and-out at the worst possible time. They threw Baker Mayfield threw a bomb on 2nd and long or 2nd and 9 to stop the clock. And then on the next play, I think they handed off to Kareem Hunt. That's when they gave the ball right back. Like the one thing Cleveland could not have done in that instance was go 3-and-out, and they did. They were just running, just gashing the Chargers all day long. Baker didn't have to throw the ball deep. And leading up to this game, people were saying on the internet that he's got this torn labrum. And I forget if it was his throwing shoulder or his non-throwing shoulder, but I was wearing that stupid jersey all morning, and everyone was like, "Is Baker playing? Is Baker?" Like, dude, what the hell? I'm just wearing the freaking jersey. I don't know. And but I feel like when he actually did have to throw deep, like he couldn't. And on that last drive, when they were down 47-42, and they needed big chunk plays, they could not get it done.
Nope.
So it's something to keep an eye on with Baker. Great game though. Herbert is a stud. That's another further indictment on how bad Oregon's coach is, Cristobal. I mean, I'm still pissed at that Iowa State Bowl from last year. And yeah, I mean, anyone that questioned Herbert, and there are a lot of them, myself included, you blame the coach. I mean, he's just a stud. It's gonna be crazy, Dave and John, with obviously New England is no longer New England, and with the Chiefs being the way they are, and with the Steelers, they're done. There's really like this vacuum for the AFC to have some sort of random representation in the conference game. Obviously, KC can figure it out. They, why wouldn't they? But it could be a weird, AFC representative in the Super Bowl. Doggy predicted the Chargers, like a Chargers San Francisco 49ers Super Bowl. The 49ers aren't looking so hot right now, but who knows? Why not the LA Chargers at this point? Those other 4:00 games, we didn't see them. I think the whole fade Kingsbury when he's a favorite, that game shouldn't count because it wasn't Garoppolo. So don't count that. I feel like this will be different when they play the Browns as a 3-point favorite. And then the night game was wild too. I think we all can agree, whether you bet the Chiefs or the Bills, that was an egregious roughing the passer penalty on Frank Clark. That would have, KC's going to get the ball back probably around midfield, down 11. They had just carved that deficit from 18 to 11. Anything could have happened back then. And then that penalty completely changed the game. And right on cue, Francesa, who knows how much money Francesa had on the Chiefs, but like clockwork, 3, 2, 1, Mike's tweet, like just the refs are ruining the game. It's like, he had a point there. He definitely did. And then the Monday night game, I was at the airport bar, had the baseball game on and the Monday night game on too, so it was kind of hard to pay attention to both things going on. But I guess that game was crazy. I guess Frank Reich got a little tight. They had kicking problems of their own. But yeah, I mean, at first glance, I was like, there's no way Baltimore going to lose to the Colts, and they're down 22-3. So in the NFL, it's hard to win in the National Football League.
That's a good way to close it out, Andy. Yeah, it actually is. You just never know. And, I mean, you had Houston right there after they got slaughtered by Buffalo the week before. You just never know. And particularly with the point spread, you just never know. I had a rough week. I was 0-4, so it was not a good week for my purposes either. So let's just go to the picks and try to turn that around, everybody. And I think we'll start with Ron's picks, who, again, Ron had the best week out of everybody last week. So let's go right to his picks as we start our week number 6 football selections for him. So here they are. So for Ron, he's going to start with game number 1, which is going to be in Florida. He's going to actually take Urban Meyer this week. Can you believe it, folks? He's actually going to play it. Jaguars getting 3 against the Dolphins. Now, a little bit of drama as far as Tua coming back, perhaps not coming back. I was just talking with Jerry earlier in the show, in our fantasy football show about Myles Gaskin. He might be a factor too. Yeah, that's an interesting call by Ron. Anyway, that's game number 1. Game number 2 for Ron, he will take the Panthers getting 1 against the Minnesota Vikings at home. This should be a good bounce-back spot for Carolina after losing an inexplicable loss to Philadelphia when they did seem, and I agree with Andy, it looked like that was in the bag in the third quarter, but not to be. So for Ron, it's going to be Jaguars +3 and the Panthers +1 for Week 6 in the NFL. Pretty cool. Okay, so good luck, Ron. And now let's go over to John in Connecticut. And John, when you're ready to go, we're ready for your week number 6 football picks.
All right, Dave. I'll note that game is in London. We're sending the Jags and Dolphins to London for 9:30 a.m.
Ooh.
Yes. Can't wait for that one Sunday morning. That's going to be quite the treat to wake up to. At least it'll be maybe some laughs from it. But yeah, we must hate the Brits. We sent them Falcons and Jets, and now Jacks and Dolphins. Like,
you really can't make it up. 1-3 versus 1-3 versus, and then the encore is 1-4 and 0-5.
Yeah. And I saw we're playing in Germany next year too. Like, who are we going to send for that one? Like, are we going to send like Rutgers and UConn or something? Like, it can't get much worse than what we're sending the Brits. But man, all right. So let's get to the picks for this week. So I will start with I'm going to go with the Lions getting 3.5 at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. I just talked about the Bengals. They're definitely an improved team this year compared to what they were the past few years. Burrow, I think he's going to definitely be a player in this league. They're just surrounded with talent with Chase and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. Like, they have a very dynamic looking offense. The problem is, and I mentioned it before, Zach Taylor is just absolutely horrendous. Like, he just coaches so conservative towards the end of these games. You even saw it against the Jags a couple weeks ago on the Thursday night, where they were favored by 7 points, and they get down 21-7 or 17-0, something like that. It required a huge comeback for them to win that game by 3 points. So basically, what I'm saying is, like, you cannot trust the Bengals as a 3.5 point favorite on the road. Like, it just, especially coming after that kind of just emotional, like, letdown, heartbreaking kind of game. Like, I could see just them being flat in this. The Lions, they were projected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL this year, and they've been competitive in almost every game. Again, they did do a lot of garbage time against the Niners in week 1, so that's kind of skewed, but they played the Packers great for a half. They really should have beaten the Ravens, and they easily could have won last week against the Vikings. The other game against Chicago, they were in the red zone a number of times and failed. The Bears were lucky to kind of get away from that game. So they've been competitive. You saw how much Campbell, he was in tears after the game on Sunday. I just think they're ready to get this win. And if not, I think this game is ending with somebody winning it on a kick. And in that scenario, you're getting 3.5. So we'll take the Lions getting the 3.5 at home here for Cincinnati. And then the second pick, I'm going to take the Browns -3 at home against the Arizona Cardinals. They really should be able to run all over the Cardinals. I mean, their rushing game is just so dynamic with Hunt and Chubb, and Mayfield doesn't even have to do that much, but I think he could do well against this Arizona defense. I saw today Chandler Jones is not going to be playing due to some COVID issues. Arizona's a good team. I'm not going to say they're not. I mean, they've clearly proven that they're better than the average NFL team, but I still think their record's a little bit inflated. I don't think they're everyone's talking about Arizona's going to the Super Bowl now. Like, let's just calm down a little bit on that. They're going to lose a few games, and I think this is a good spot for them to take their first loss on the road in Cleveland. So we will take the Browns -3. In addition to the Bengals +3.5 are your NFL picks for week number 6.
All right, John. Thanks for those picks. Very interesting value, I think, is with respect to, especially with respect to the lines. Like it's interesting. They did sort of hang around there last week, like you mentioned. So very interesting. So let's go to Andy, and we're ready for your week 6 when you are ready.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Be relatively quick. Game number 1. I normally would try to pivot and try to find a new game, but I hadn't looked at any of the lines until right about now, and so I'm gonna, for the sake of strategy, and if I'm thinking it and he thinks it, I'm not the only. I can't be that stupid. So I'm gonna go checker on a checker with checker and take Cleveland -3. It's one of those fade Kingsbury on the road. Yeah, I know that this really has nothing to do with performances and actual what happens on the field. So guys like Gamble and you don't even know the players' names. But there's something to be said. Arizona, you close your eyes, you see them. They're playing on the road. They're playing their white uniforms. They're playing in the Northeast in the fall. Could be, I don't even know if weather's going to be a factor, but they're just, you close your eyes, you think of Arizona as a team that just doesn't win big games on the road if it's cold, if there's elements. And it's probably it's not late enough in the year for Cleveland to have any of that. But all that to say, I think Cleveland, what we saw last week, what we've seen of them throughout the year is, they have one of the best running programs in the league. Arizona's more of a, I wouldn't say one-man band, but it's Kyler Murray. And if Kyler Murray is slightly off, then that whole team can struggle. And John already mentioned Chandler Jones. I mean, besides that one game where he had 5.5 sacks, that's basically it. And I'm not saying Stefanski isn't Lombardi, but he's better than Cliff Kingsbury. I think we can all agree on that. And so, Arizona has just kind of had this charmed start to the season. They beat Minnesota because Minnesota couldn't kick the ball proper. They beat Jacksonville because everyone beat Jacksonville. They got kind of a break against San Francisco because no Garoppolo. So they've kind of mirrored, the Broncos to a certain standpoint where they've benefited from the schedule that's been presented to them. And so, yeah, give me the Browns -3, anti-Clint Kingsbury, anti-Arizona on the road. Give me the Browns. And then game number 2, and you'll have to check on this because Tommy sent me his picks, and he picked Dallas -3, but we can all go on Vegas Insider right now, and it's Dallas -3.5. And I say this because protect the field, protect the integrity of this contest, and I'm taking the Pats. So I'm getting Pats +3.5 because we go on Vegas Insider right now, and it's Dallas -3.5. This is a scenario where if you're not a Patriot Mongo, you see the line, you're like, Dallas should be favored by a lot more than 3.5, which is probably why Tommy's taking it, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. And New England needed to freaking pull every last measure. Houston missed a couple field goals. Houston got called for a roughing the passer penalty on 3rd and 19. New England had to do a lot just to squeeze out a win against the Texans, which are, the Texans are arguably one of the, crappier teams in the league. Dallas is just, they've been flying. A lot of people, ourselves included, had a lot of questions about Dallas. The defense isn't any good, but their defense looked pretty good, opening night against Tampa Bay. They had that crazy game against the Chargers week 2. We didn't see any of the game against the Giants last week, but, they handled them pretty well. I would say the Eagle game on that Monday night, I think they kind of killed them too. So yeah, now they're going to New England and they're only 3.5, and we've all seen New England. They looked their best arguably in the loss against Tampa, and then every other game they've kind of been underwhelming. But again, this is just a game where I want to root for the Pats. Be a Mongo, Nance and Romo gonna be there. Damian Harris, he's probably one more fumble in the red zone away from losing his job. But the problem is the guy from Oklahoma, Stevenson, he fumbled against Miami, and he hasn't sniffed any significant playing time after that. And so we'll see. Not to sound like Dilfer, but the Patriots, the only way, and the way to win this game is to, control the ball, be relatively conservative and simple on offense. And when you get in the red zone, the few times you are going to get in the red zone, you have to get, touchdowns, because you can't settle for field goals. If you're going to win a 21-17 ball game, you need to be the team with the 21, which means no red zone field goals. So give me the Pats +3.5 for game number 2. Game number 1, Browns -3.
Thanks for the pick, Sandy. Yeah, very savvy thinking there with especially with the New England pick, and I will confirm the 3.5 for you. And besides, it's a bonus pick anyway, so you certainly get priority there. So that's what I see too. So we're gonna go 3.5 both ways. You'll see the guest pick later from Tom regarding that game. So thanks everybody. Thank you, Andy. Good luck. And now we'll go to my picks. And here's what I've got for you in week 6. Let's do it. All right. So let's see. Let's go take a look at this. Week 6 in the NFL. Well, it can only go up. That was a rough couple days. That was a rough time. Although I did think I was in the right place with a couple of those games. But let's not worry about the past. We'll go to the future. And I'm going to go take on, and this is tricky because we got the Chargers, who just had a dramatic win against the Browns, and you have the Ravens, who just had a dramatic win against the Colts on Monday Night Football. So it's like, how do you pick a game like that? Well, I'm going to take the value. I'm going to take the Chargers on the road, getting the 3 points. I think as good as Lamar Jackson is, and he's very good, like he's really good, and as well as they can be running the ball, you did see some stuff that you probably aren't going to see a week from now. Mark Andrews getting like 1 billion points in fantasy wherever your league was. That is not going to happen again. That's just crazy. But the Chargers, I feel like, are the model of consistency on offense. They have a lot of great options. Herbert is having a fantastic year, and I think Tom texted me this morning. He thought that Herbert was the front runner to be the MVP, and I think I'm with him on that. He's playing really great to start the year. You have some great wide receiver options, whether it's Mike Williams or Keenan Allen, and then you've got Austin Eckler, who's just having a tremendous start. I mean, it's a great offense, and you saw that the Colts, with not nearly as good running backs, running all over the Ravens on Monday night. So I'm going to go with the Chargers here, and we'll just say, good luck, Yachts, or congratulations, Yachts, or sorry, Yachts at the end of it. We'll find out which one it is, but I'll take my chances with the points. Chargers +3. That's game number 1. That's very long. So I'll make this shorter. Titans +5.5 against the Bills is the second one. You talk about a letdown spot. The Bills, after that big dramatic blowout win of Kansas City, which is aided by a bad call, hell fucking no, they're not going to cover that. Fuck no. Titans +5.5. That's game number 2 to go with Chargers +3. Sorry for the language. I was pretty fired up about that. I'm just like, the Bills are not. Look, I got to give the Bills a lot of credit. No doubt. They're a great team. They're a good team. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I feel like they're due for a letdown at some point. All right, let's go to the guest picks. They are from Tom. Let's do it up. All right, here we go. So, Tom in New Jersey. These are his picks. Of course, as we come to expect from Tom's guest picks, we'll have some bonus picks as well. Tom will first go. He just shook his head off camera.
Bonuses.
Tom will go Chargers +3, going checker and a checker with my pick earlier. Tom also goes Bears +4.5 against the Packers, and I don't know if that's going against anybody. No, I don't think so. So Chargers and Bears are his 2 NFL picks. Now for the bonus picks. He will take the Bucks giving 6.5 tomorrow against the Eagles, and he will, as we talked about earlier in Andy's segment, he will lay the points with Dallas, giving 3.5 against said Patriots in Foxborough. So once again for Tom, Chargers +3, Bears +4.5, and 2 bonus picks of Bucks -6.5 and Cowboys -3.5 for Week 6. Whew, that's a lot there to unpack. So let's go look at the games coming up this weekend, and actually we have a pretty good slate coming up. So let's go look. And oh, whoops, I was on the wrong slide. Excuse me, it was over here. These were Tommy's picks for NFL Week 6. Oh God, I need it. Not my finest hour on YouTube, folks. Sorry, folks. But let's go to featured games. Hopefully they're the right ones. Okay, yeah, those look pretty good. So here's what we have for Week 6 in the NFL. You've got pretty good 1 p.m. slate, actually. So that Charger-Ravens game is surprisingly an early game, and I think it's just because CBS... Yeah, I don't know why this is for an early game. I think it's a better game than the other one. But we'll roll with it. Chargers-Ravens at 1. Packers-Bears at 1 o'clock on Fox, and then Vikings-Panthers also at 1 on Fox. I'm not really sure if that's really a featured game, but it is 2 teams that are in the same kind of record, so I'll give it to them. Vikings have been a little off to start the year, but maybe they'll be better here. Cardinals versus Browns, though. John talked about that in picks. Really good pick. Really good game, I think, coming up at 4:05 Eastern on Fox. And let's give it up to the 4:05 slot. Man, 4:05 games have been killing it. You know, the Chargers game was a 4:05 game. So it's kind of been a bummer for the doubleheader networks. They're not getting the best games here, but you do get one decent game in the doubleheader slot, maybe. Raiders Broncos. I'll let you guys decide whether that's a featured game. Bills versus Titans will be your Monday night game. Notice I didn't put Sunday night this time because I don't think there's much there. I think, what was it, like Seattle versus Pittsburgh? Yeesh, no. So Monday night is your last featured game. Bills Titans. Could be sneaky good, you guys. Like I said, I think the Titans are going to be very pesky here. If you remember, I think the Titans crushed either Buffalo or Indianapolis last year, or maybe I had that backwards, in one of those games. So Bills Titans at 8:15 Monday night could be interesting. So let's go to the panel, talk about the games coming up. John, I'll give it to you first. I mean, certainly a lot to talk about. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right about that, Dave. If you remember, Bills-Titans last year was a Tuesday night game. They moved the schedule all over the place because of the COVID situation. and that game ended up being played on a Tuesday night. The Titans were without like half their team basically, or it was just a number of players, and they just crushed the Bills. So I agree with your pick, Dave. I think it's the perfect spot for Tennessee. With Buffalo coming off that huge win, I think the line's probably inflated a few points. Just maybe a little worried about kind of the revenge angle from last year, but I don't know if that kind of works with NFL teams. Maybe more so with college teams that win one year and then they play again the next, especially in the non-conference matchups. But yeah, that should be a pretty good game. The Titans haven't really been that impressive this year, but there's talent there, obviously, and I think that could be a pretty good game. So I would tend to agree with you, Dave, on that pick anyway. As long as the spread stays where it is, like it's like 5.5 right now, I would agree with that. I guess we'll work backwards. Raiders Broncos. John Gruden's gone, and we'll see. It honestly could be a relief for the team to have him out of there. I mean, it was clearly maybe a distraction last week, just being there on the sidelines with all this like over their heads. So, we certainly have proven the Broncos are not as good of a team as they started the year. And I think we called that a couple of weeks ago when they played the Ravens because, they started off against the Giants, Jets, and Jags. And they've kind of played down to their competition since. So I see the Raiders are catching 3.5. That definitely entices me for this game. Vikings Panthers. I honestly would not bet that game if someone gave me their money to bet. I have no idea with that. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, the Vikings, who knows what you're going to get from them? Like they just play up and down to their competition each week. And the Panthers, we saw them the other day just collapse against Philly. I'm staying away from this game. Packers Bears, always a great rivalry. I mean, the Packers have owned the Bears in recent years. Rodgers has I think they've won 10 out of 12 in Soldier Field. Everyone's probably going to be on Green Bay. The spread's only 4. The Bears still have a good defense, but the Packers defense actually has been playing okay. Like I was really, worried after the first couple of games of the year, but they've settled it nicely. They just need to do a little more of, they do this soft zone coverage and they just need to be more aggressive. But I think they're going to win, but the spread's kind of dicey. Maybe Green Bay more so in money line parlays. And yeah, that Chargers Ravens game, lots of points, I think, in that one from what we've seen from these two defenses. So same thing with the Chiefs and the football team, points galore in that one. I think that'll be when they played the Eagles a couple weeks ago, it was like 42-30. I could kind of see a similar score to that game. The Chiefs should get right in this game. I mean, their offense, the Washington defense has been so overrated after last season, and they just been awful this year. And the Chiefs should have their way with them. So, it's a pretty interesting slate. We have our first 4 teams on a bye, so that's always good or interesting from a fantasy perspective when you have to, try to mix and match with that if you're losing some players. So, hopefully the weekend delivers like it has been the past couple of weeks. I mean, the red zone has just been absolutely off the charts. So we just hope for that to keep it continue this Sunday.
100%. Every week has been great so far, which is really remarkable about the NFL. There hasn't been a dud. And it's been 5 weeks now. This is week 6, so just a tremendous start for the league. I got to give it to them. Really great. So, Andy, I'll give it to you also for a look at this week's action, and I'll put those maps up if you want to take a look at those as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get big finger from Nance and Romo for not putting that game up there.
Oh, you mean this one? Wait, where is it? No, wait. This one right here.
The non-map score bug that you put up before John gave his thoughts.
Oh, because they didn't put it on. Oh, yeah.
And
I was
Al
deliberate,
Michaels
too.
Al Michaels is going to give you a big finger.
I know. Let's go back. Let me go back to that. Let me show you.
It's all good.
I definitely, yeah.
It's all good. It's all good.
Look, hey, listen, I stand by
and
it.
You didn't, Bruce Aaron's going to give you a big finger. No, I think, so it's funny, John mentioned the Washington football team Chiefs game. Yeah, that's going to be offensive galore. In fact, Taylor Heineke on Matt Berry's website is projected to have 22 points. So, as John mentioned, there are a bunch of teams on bye and stuff. So you're going to, if you need to go on the waiver wire and pick up a scrub at quarterback, Henneke might not be a bad option. And, I think Williams, the running back for the Chiefs, the people that had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you're going to need some backup too. It's, the Jets, they had all that momentum, and now they got to go on a bye. No, not the Jets. They're one of the teams on the bye. But Washington, Kansas City, that smells like an over. The Ravens Chargers game, that could be one of those, last team with the ball going to win that game. Dave, I don't remember, but I think those two had like a pretty good. It was a big game around Christmas time a couple years ago when Rivers was still on the.
Oh yeah.
I forget what the score was on that game, but I don't know that Chargers Ravens. That when I just saw this graphic, it reminded me of that Christmas game.
Yeah.
Because Dog was like obsessed with that game for what he was like. That game's gonna mean something like in November before that, So just one of those things. Bills Titans. Yeah, I remember the COVID game on a Tuesday. Remember when the Steelers and the Ravens played? I think on like a Wednesday night.
That was nuts.
But Vikings Panthers, those two teams, instances where they kind of need both teams can't get out of their own way. That game right there could be one of those like loser leaves town, and then the winner is like, yeah, we still got this. But Cardinals Browns. We're going to be in that game for all sorts of rooting interest. Packers and Bears, John knows better than anyone. Like, I think Aaron Rodgers gets like a second happy ending for beating the Bears. He just loves to troll the Bears. And I agree, 4.5. I'll probably still take it, but I'm definitely going to have Green Bay and a few money lines. Unfortunately, like Fields, whatever they do with Fields for the Bears, it has kind of negated all the crappy stuff Nagy does. Nagy is a horrible coach, but Fields, unfortunately, has given him like a little bit more of a shelf life. They've actually looked respectable the last two games, but I think Green Bay will figure it out. I mean, that game against the Bengals with all the weird kicks that we missed the ending of. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor is a total clown. Bengals will be good, but yeah, we're just kind of rambling at this point. We'll be into all these games. We'll be making up for lost couch time. And Dave, I mentioned that to you over on Sunday at the bar. The Steelers. Now they got to beat an overrated Bronco team, and now they get to play Geno Smith's Seahawks team. So all of a sudden, winning 9 games isn't like completely out of the question. If we thought it might have been when they were on that losing streak after the opening win against the Bills. So it's a long NFL season. It's hard to, we still used to like breaking it up in 4-game quadrants, but with the 17th game, you can't do that 25%, 50%, 75% anymore, but we still kind of can.
It's like that with a rover pick, like a mulligan game, but it's kind of like that. Yeah, it's going to depend on Ben, isn't it? It's going to depend on Ben. I mean, well, if he has a good game, he doesn't throw the ball to the other team.
But Juju's hurt. Isn't Juju out for the rest of the year?
Yeah, no, that's going to be... So it's going to be a lot of Claypool then, right? And then we'll see. But, but it's interesting. Cap and I were talking earlier in our fantasy show about Najee Harris as a receiving threat, and he gets targeted a lot. I think that is going to be one to watch during that game when we get around to it.
Captain doesn't hate Najee as much anymore.
What he used to when he was... That's funny.
Yeah.
Interesting note. Good nugget. I love it. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up. I can show you just briefly how LA will get hosed a little bit right in the map. But before we go, though, guys, I did want to actually talk about the Gruden situation, and that was a really, really nasty scenario. I don't know exactly why these emails got brought up to the public, but boy, what a terrible guy he turned out to be, huh? I mean, John, if you want to talk about that a little bit, I mean, it's obviously a benefit to the Raiders because he stinks as a coach. He's a bad coach anyway, but man, who knew? Like, everybody knew he was a clown, but I didn't know he was just literally an asshole. Like, he was awful. He apparently is an awful guy. And as to, like, this issue about privacy, it's a valid question. I don't know if I like the precedent it's setting as far as, like, anything you write in emails, just everyone's going to know about it. I don't know if I love that. But the point remains that, man, he just did some really terrible stuff. So, John, you with us? Like, what's your feeling about the Gruden scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Dave. It's a delicate situation for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, my feeling is that, the whole thing was because of an investigation into Washington and Snyder. So, like, why are Gruden's emails released and not Snyder? I mean, the NFL is clearly protecting him, the NFL is really run by the owners. That's why they're I think it sets a bad precedent in that the NFL is basically leaking these emails drip by drip to get whoever they want fired, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, Gruden he just turns out not to be a good guy, and like anyone who says, oh well, what, show me your emails, or like you're pretty much outing yourself as like a racist, homophobic piece of shit, basically. Like, who says those things in an email?
Right.
Like, that's just who says those things in general. And like it again, like in all the people like screaming cancel culture and freedom of speech. Like the Raiders are a private organization, like, and there's standards. Like he has to be a leader of men. Like, let's not forget, like, there's an openly gay player on his team now. Like, how can he coach that guy now, or have any respect in the locker room with that guy, or just the team in general? Like he just had to go. Like, it is what it is. Like, it just that's just how it is. And and he's not going to jail. He's not getting killed for his remarks. A private business made a decision. He'll probably end up coaching again in a few years, or end up back on television. I mean, his life's not over. I think John Gruden will end up being okay after the dust settles. So it's just the world we live in, where just needs to be instant reaction, and both sides it essentially. And that's just kind of one of the problems with our world today. But it is what it is, and he had to be gone. And in terms of a football standpoint, like I said, I think it's probably going to help them against Denver, I think, this weekend. I think they're very much of a live dog. So just kind of my brief thoughts on it.
Yeah, the football side of it to me is a net benefit. I think he was a terrible coach this year. So, I mean, what a break for them from that standpoint. And don't be feeling too sorry for Gruden. Didn't he have like a 10-year, $100 million contract anyway? Like, he's got plenty of money. I don't think you have to feel that sorry for him. So, Andy, anything you wanted to add as far as the Gruden scenario?
I think it's what John said. I echo, and just to illustrate how we consume and shit it out and digest it, like, Urban Meyer is like, whoa, all right, all you guys, you all spent the last 72 hours like talking about me. Now you can talk about John, and no one cares what Urban Meyer did. We might revisit it, but it's funny, Dave. I think you're right. Like, I don't, Gruden, I think at some point would have stopped becoming the Raider coach for actual like coaching reasons. So it just kind of maybe expedited what would be inevitable, which would be Gruden no longer coaching the Raiders. Now this just kind of it got the ball rolling, maybe a couple of years ahead of time. And as for Urban Meyer, I have a lot more fun with Urban Meyer because all of us here like never thought he would assimilate to the NFL successfly, and he has just been like an absolute train wreck. I'm not ready to the train wreck to end. I want to continue to see how bad Jacksonville can go. There's more depth. There's more. We haven't reached rock bottom yet with the Jaguars, and I want to be around for it. I want Urban to stick around as long as he can. But the Gruden stuff, yeah, like it's like y'all said, it's not his birthright to coach, right? And all of us could lose our jobs, for different reasons. He's has a high profile job, and and whether it doesn't really, the email could have been a freaking Yahoo address. It could have been NFL.com address. Like he got outed as like a bigot and a homophobe. Like, and the players, like, they're like, what the hell, man? Like,
Right.
We don't respect you. So what's done is done. They need to just, cut. It's like it's 1888 and they've got to cut the arm off and move on.
Yeah, that's true. And so people are like, "Oh, how could they fire him?" But it's like they don't have a choice. Like he had no choice but to resign either in that scenario, because if they didn't, the players weren't going to play for him. Like it was a self-fulfilling prophecy once that got out. So I'm completely with you on that, Andy. So with that, the Raiders get to move on. Perhaps they saved themselves some trouble. There was no way he was going to ride out all 10 years of that deal. There's no way. No one expected that. So let's move on to the college side of things, where it's like a lot cleaner. That's completely sarcastic. It is not cleaner. It's not cleaner on any level whatsoever. But we had a lot of good games last week. And to tell us more about it, let's go back and talk about, again, a really wild week in college football. I mean, the Red River game was fantastic. The Alabama, and it stinks for Alabama, but listen, that's college football for you. You just never know. I mean, A&M comes out big. Their quarterback plays like you've never seen them play before. Who knew? And then the same scenario for Iowa and Penn State, and Iowa's the number 2 team in the country. You know what that says to me? It just says that there ain't very many good teams this year in college football. That's what it says. I don't think it means Iowa's that good. So there's a lot that went on in college football. And John, I could only think to give it to you for the recap of what really was an incredible football weekend in college too.
Oh man, yeah, it was an interesting Saturday for sure. That Red River game, man, I don't know how Texas still lost that bet. It's just, they come out like a ball of fire. They're ahead, like they're intercepting Spencer Rattler. They're blocking kicks. Like the Oklahoma defense, they can't stop anything that Sark is throwing at them. Bijan Robinson running wild. Casey Thompson's just pinpoint accuracy. They're up 28-7. And then after that, it just kind of went downhill. I mean, he got a little conservative. The Oklahoma made the best decision going to replace Rattler with Caleb Williams. I mean, Rattler, he might be in the transfer portal right now. Honestly, like he's gone from there. Like that's
wow, really.
Well, I'm just saying, like he's not going to stay there. Like he was already regarded. Like you read stories that he was a bad teammate, and his other, they don't like him, or he's partying too much, and all those things, and just you could tell like he was just pouting on the sidelines on Saturday after he got benched. Like I know, human nature. Like yeah, you're going to be upset about that. But, like at least try to show a little support for your team. But yeah, that was a huge move that Riley made, because that was the winning move. But really, just these margins are just razor thin between some of these teams. Like there's that 3rd and 19 play that they just throw it up for grabs. The receiver's foot is like in by an inch on the sideline, and they end up scoring that touchdown, getting a 2-point conversion, and then they ended up going up 7. Then Texas, surprisingly, I thought they were going to be done at that point. They go down the field and tie it. With about like a minute left or something. And then you think, okay, it's a perfect position for Oklahoma to go down, kick their field goal. They're going to win, but all right, Texas 3.5 plus 3.5 is going to cover. And of course, they break the run to go into the end zone with like a second left on the clock, and just the worst possible beat you could have for a Texas plus 3.5 pick. So, it is what it is. Like, I'll try to remember that one the next time I get an incredibly lucky break, in my favor. But yeah, that was definitely a rough beat. And Oklahoma, they've been escaping a lot of these games, but they're very much in the hunt for the college football playoff as we get into mid-October. I mean, there's not that many weeks left in the regular season. We're like halfway done, so they're still in the hunt for sure. And that was a huge win for them. The Bama game was really shocking to me, because if you guys remember 2 weeks ago, I was telling you about my SEC survivor pool. And so that was the week that UConn played Vanderbilt. So I did not take Vanderbilt over UConn. And I didn't take South Carolina over Troy. That was the other game that was kind of a say easy pick, but like a higher spread pick. I ended up taking Texas A&M over Mississippi State, who lost. They lost. Calzada could not have looked any worse in that game, or just in general for the season. Like they beat Colorado 10-7 when he had to come in the game. Like the guy has looked horrible, and then all of a sudden he decides to just have this amazing night against Alabama. And that's why college football is great. I mean, players can improve, and good on him. And they just got off to that hot start, and they were able to sustain it. And when they Bama fought back, and then when they needed that drive, I mean, he gave it to them, and they went down the field and won. So great job out of them. You love seeing a huge upset like that. I mean, Bama by no means is out of it. They went out, they beat Georgia in the SEC title game, assuming Georgia's going to be there, and I think we all agree that they will be. Alabama will be in the college football playoffs, so they still control their own destiny. It's just a blip on the radar for them. It's still all in front of them, but definitely that was probably the most surprising game of the weekend to me. A couple other games there you have listed. Yeah, Ole Miss, Arkansas. Like there was nothing going on in that game for like a quarter and a half, and then all of a sudden, like just the floodgates broke open, and they just were trading scores back and forth, and every time that a team scored, you're like, oh shit, there's like just way too much time left here for the other team to score. And Arkansas made the right move there, going for 2 at the end of the game for sure. I mean, just put it in your own hands there, and they just couldn't convert. But that was certainly a really exciting game. Penn State, Iowa, kind of your classic Big Ten slugfest. Although I will say, I think we would agree that like Penn State was very much in control of that game until Sean Clifford got injured, and then it just completely changed after that. Iowa was able to turn up the defensive pressure, and the Penn State's young quarterback struggled. So hey, like you don't complain for a win, complain about a win. So Iowa certainly will take it. And they're number 2 in the country, and again, it's all right there for them. And their schedule is not too difficult the rest of the way. They do have to play, I think, at Wisconsin and at Nebraska, probably their 2 hardest games. But I wouldn't say their defense couldn't carry them to wins in those games. So. That was a huge win for Iowa. And then if you look at the Big Ten East, you have like those 4 teams. They're all going to play each other, and it's going to all settle itself out between Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State. I don't think none of them have played each other yet. So they're all going to play each other, and it's going to be one of those teams is going to be in the mix playing maybe probably Iowa in the Big Ten title game. So that's all going to shake itself out over the next month. And then there was another, I think those are the high profile kind of games that were just wild over the weekend. I do want, you have the scoreboard up there, Dave. Yeah, thank you. So the Michigan-Nebraska game, once again, Scott Frost just cannot win these close games. I don't know who's got a voodoo curse on this guy. Like, going from Central Florida where he was just the king of the castle. Now he's literally might be coaching for his job here. Like they just can't win these close games. You got to feel for the guy. And Michigan kind of just escapes that. I don't think they're as good as the number 9 team in the country, but like you said, Dave, it's a bizarre year. I mean, anything can happen this year. I think Cincinnati is very much alive to make the college football playoff this year. They have to, like I said before, I think they need Alabama to lose, because if Alabama wins out and beats Georgia, both of those teams will be in. They have to worry about. In theory, they have to worry about Oregon, because Oregon, if they run the table and they have that win over Ohio State, they probably would get in. But I think Oregon's a fraud, and I think they're going to lose again here at some point. So I wouldn't even worry about them if I was Cincinnati. I think Oregon's going to knock themselves out. And then you have Oklahoma in the Big 12, and that's again, they're just winning these games close every day. So there's definitely a path this year for Cincinnati to get there, and especially if they keep winning dominantly. It's just crazy how things change. Like they're 21-point favorites over UCF this weekend. Like who would have thought that? Like even 2 years ago. I mean, granted, UCF they're just so injured right now. Gabriel is hurt. Like they have running backs hurt. They scored like 18 points against East Carolina the other day, and like it was a struggle. Like that was one of my best picks of the week was East Carolina. The UCF is just not the same team as they were like 2 years ago in terms of their offense anyway. But I'm rambling now. Last game I'll mention. Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. That game annoyed me so much. So I had Vatech. They were winning the whole game. Another game. You thought it was in the bag, and then just Notre Dame just a ratty team. I give them credit, they hang in there, but I don't know. Fuente is he is just not it. at Virginia Tech. And, Notre Dame, they tie the game up. Vodtech goes up 29-21. And again, a scenario, you think the game's over. They let Notre Dame go all the way down the field. They score. They get the 2-point conversion to tie the game. You're like, oh, shit. All right, well, at least Virginia Tech's getting the ball back. It gets down to like 4th and 1 on their own 40-yard line. And this fucking guy punts the ball. Like, you're going to lose. Like, what are you doing? Like, you haven't stopped them. And he punts it away. And, of course, Notre Dame goes down and gets the field goal. That was like such an annoying game because Vodtech was the right play. Notre Dame is fraudulent. I think we all know that. And they just keep winning these games. And I guess, good for them. They find a ways to win. But they are not a top 10 team. And then we're going to look to fade them, but I saw their next game is home against USC, so maybe we'll have to wait another week for that because USC, I'm sorry, Dave.
No, you're right.
They're in shambles. I am so mad at myself for not betting Utah +3. That was just such – and you ever have after the game is over, you're like, shit, that was a really easy bet. Why did not I bet Utah +3? That was just too easy. But I digress. It was a really fun Saturday to watch all these games for sure. And I mean, football season is just delivering this year. You can't get any better than we've had so far.
100%. I mean, the only thing that was kind of keeping USC alive as far as someone to bet on was that trend of them not winning in LA, like Utah not winning when they were playing Los Angeles, but when you saw that Dart was not going to play and it was going to be slow, it was like, oh, God. Like, I just stayed away at that point. I'm like, although I don't think I did in the picks here, which is so stupid. Like, now I feel like a dumbass for putting that in there. But whatever. It's okay. I think you're absolutely right, Sean, in the end. Do not bet on USC the rest of the season. That's my advice. That's a good idea. All right, Andy, let's go to you for the recap of last week's action. Certainly a lot to cover, but what are your thoughts?
Well, didn't get to see as much as I usually do because, well, I was drinking with you and Floyd at that bar.
Yep.
And in the morning, I was really just watching the Ole Miss Arkansas game on my phone, and that game just was never ending. And obviously, Texas and Oklahoma was doing their thing. I'm just looking right now at the Utah USC history. So USC won at Utah in 2020, but when the game is in Los Angeles, USC won in 2019 too. When the game was in LA in 2017, Utah covered. When the game was in LA in 2015, USC covered. But yeah, I'm curious because I always feel like these games are just kind of topsy-turvy. USC won by a point in 2017. Utah killed them in 2018 as a 7-point, but they were giving 7 anyway, so they covered by 13.
Where was that?
Well, those two teams, they kind of bother me here and there. But yeah, I mentioned we all should have taken Utah a couple nights ago. But the season is flying by. Alabama lost. That was kind of crazy to digest. The week before, Texas A&M lost to a freaking pirate of all teams, Mike Leach. They're not that good either. SEC is just kind of, I wouldn't say disarray, but you've got, you guys know, like Kentucky is undefeated. They got an ex-Penn State quarterback who eats like bananas with the peel for attention. I don't know, Will Levi. They have to lose at some point. It'll be this week maybe. I think they play Georgia. So, but they're on. I'm pretty sure Kentucky's undefeated. LSU is probably going to fire their coach in a couple of weeks. Alabama has a loss. Georgia, we're waiting for Kirby Smart to be Kirby Smart. A&M has renewed life now. And Florida's, I don't know if Florida has a down year, but they're just, Mueller is not Mueller without Trask and Kyle Pitts. I'm looking so Notre Dame, they're basically they they should have 4 losses. They should have 4 losses. I didn't see any of the Boise State BYU game, but I guess maybe BYU had some quarterback problems. John might answer that better than me, but I thought going into the game they might have been having to play their 3rd string quarterback. Penn State, Iowa, the silver lining to all this is there's going to be a lot of cross-pollination with the rest of those Big Ten teams, and last man standing, hopefully will be a worthy opponent. God, fuck off, James Franklin. Any of these schools, maybe Michigan, maybe Sparty, you're rooting for the tallest midget in that instance. And as I mentioned on the board, Hayden in Virginia, this angry caller that calls dog was like, why can't the Big Ten get 2 teams? This is the Big Ten conference to get 2 teams in the playoff. Well, the SEC gets it every year. Why can't the Big Ten get it this year? It's the conference isn't that good, man. It's boring. It's boring football. Nothing happens. And that might have been the most nondescript 23-20 Iowa Penn State game. Dave, you were there. There were 5 TVs with that game on.
I know. What the hell was that?
I was turning my back watching Brave Brewers. I just could not get in that game. Could not get into that game. And God, Iowa is just not fun. I'd rather see how far Herm Edwards and Arizona State can go. And they're a much more fun team. Coastal Carolina. I know I'm just rambling, but I'd rather see Coastal Carolina line up against App State next week 5 million times before I get into any of this Big Ten stuff.
Yeah.
Big 12. Oklahoma State, close your eyes. Every year they just seem to be top 10, top 15. You don't know what they're really made of. And now we'll get a chance because they play Texas. And, eventually Gundy's going to look like a fool, but they're undefeated. And as we've all know, everyone's been paying attention to the Texas San Antonio Roadrunners. they've been winning and covering. So I'm more into the non-Power 5 schools, seeing how they do. SMU, they're undefeated. Somehow they're just they won a game on a Hail Mary. I'd rather root for these conferences and some of these schools that you're not going to hear from, in a couple of years because, they get these one and done seasons where the team goes 10-2 against the spread, and you're I like that. That's good. Every week we can hammer this team.
Man, speaking of hammer this team, I think I'm going to be fading the entire Big Ten this week. I just think they're all just going to be really inflated odds. Every one of those top 10 teams in there. My God.
Dave, I'll just add quickly. Yeah, I am so on board with what Andy is saying. My 2 new favorite teams are UTSA and Coastal Carolina. I just cannot get enough watching these teams. Coastal's offense is just unbelievable. It's just that crazy diamond spread half. It's an option, but they run it from a diamond formation, and it's just unstoppable. At least the scrub teams they're playing, and they're just relentless. I wish I had bet more money against when they were playing Arkansas State last week. That was just such an easy pick in hindsight. Again, I did bet it, but I wish I had done more. And legit, if I win the lottery, I am going to pay for Coastal's coach to come to UConn. I would die to see that offense in the UConn sidelines. Honestly, I cannot get enough of that. And UTSA, those Frank Harris and Sincere McCormick, those guys are just phenomenal. That game against West, me and Andy were probably the only people watching Western Kentucky and UTSA on Stadium. I don't even know if you saw the game, but that was just you gotta love it. I love those teams. My 2 new favorites this year.
I've noticed a lot of UTSA love on the picks, guys. I've seen them picked almost every week in our contests. I think it's been the last 3 weeks someone has picked them. So very good, very savvy on your guys' part.
I'll just say this real quick. They opening night they played Illinois. I think it might have been a Friday night FS1 game or something, and I just Google UTSA, and I'm pretty sure I read Harris.
they returned back like all their skill guys, and I just remember UTSA had like a Mongo coach a few years ago, like a retread guy.
Coker. Yeah.
Name.
Larry Coker, right? The former. Yeah.
So I'm like, for tradition, let's just take UTSA, and they just really haven't skipped a beat. I'm just looking at the only game they haven't covered against UNLV, but I don't know if I'll get into them against Rice, but yeah, La Tech, we'll keep an eye on UTSA. They're probably at this point, they're what like San Jose State was last year to this year,
Yeah.
Just hopefully the odds makers just be nice.
That's true. That point is going to come at some point, we figure. So it's just a matter of when, huh? That's cool. All right, so let's go look at this week's action. I mean, there's a decent amount of action. It's not going to be like last week. I already know that. But we have some decent games. I think we got Oklahoma State versus Texas. I mean, this is what's interesting. So Texas comes off that big win and that heist of a cover, and John and I know that well. We both were burned on that game against Oklahoma. I don't think they're going to play that well this time. We're going to see, though. So Oklahoma State, number 12. Texas, number 25. That's the big noon showdown game on Fox. Should be fun. Another one that it could be fun, and maybe it's just me because I'm biased, but I'm still waiting for Georgia's offense to get tested. I just don't feel like... And by the way, you're not even using JT. They're not even using Daniels right now. So he's been hurt, and they've been going Bennett. I really think that Kentucky is going to have a good game against these guys. Maybe I'm giving away my pick, but I don't care. Like, number 11 Kentucky at number 1 Georgia. Georgia looks like they are the shit. Deservedly so. However, I feel like Kentucky's defense is pretty legitimate. And Andy alluded to this, but they smashed LSU. They really did. They smashed LSU. Like, they were completely shut down. Now, Andy said 2 weeks. I think it's going to be like a couple days. I think Orgeron's gonna be gone by the time we do the next podcast, you guys. I really do. I'll be shocked if he's still coaching by then. But we'll see. Purdue versus number 2 Iowa. Yeah, have fun with that, you guys. That's how bad this week isn't that good if I put them on the board for featured games. Number 19 BYU versus Baylor. John, maybe you might have thoughts on that. But another interesting scenario: TCU versus number 4 Oklahoma. That could be a sneaky good game, too, because I think TCU might be good. Maybe I'll see what you guys think of it. But let's go back to John, and let's get your thoughts about this week's action.
Yeah, definitely not the schedule compared to last week on paper. But as we've seen, like, it doesn't take much to have a great Saturday. And, of course, like, we're, going to be betting on a bunch of games. So, we'll make the best of it. But in terms of the highlight marquee games, like, there's not much here. Always interesting to see how Texas and Oklahoma come off that kind of just huge rivalry game that just takes a lot out of them, and they still have to play a conference schedule in the following week. And Andy is right. It's like Oklahoma State. I don't think they're a good team yet. They're undefeated and they're right up there. They just kind of just do it with smoke and mirrors almost every year. But they're catching Texas in the right spot for sure. In this game. Their offense hasn't been great this year. They lost Chuba Hubbard and their receiver, Tylan Wallace. So Spencer Sanders really hasn't had his full complement of weapons like they've had in the past. But they're somehow finding to win games. Their defense has been pretty good. There'll certainly be a test against Texas. They're coming off a bye, too. That's just a tough game for me to try to handicap. I don't know. I'm staying away from that one. And same with, I saw Oklahoma's laying like 2 touchdowns. That's just screaming to me to take TCU. I know TCU's defense has not been very good at all this year, but you got to figure like they can score enough to keep within 2 touchdowns of Oklahoma. That seems like way too many points to be laying. Even if they do stick with the quarterback change with Williams, and that just seems like a few too many points. The BYU game from last week. BYU, I actually did take Boise. Just a pick, not here, but just in a bet. And BYU had like 4 fumbles. They really struggled in that game. So I think could be getting a little value here, maybe on BYU. I don't know. I don't know what to make of Baylor either. I just, they've had some nice wins, but they're definitely better than they were last year. It was just a disaster. And I think, just chalk that up to having a new coach and just not being able to practice and do whatever preseason training and then all the COVID stuff. So, that was just kind of a lost year, but I still really don't know how good they are. Their quarterbacks are, Bohannon. I remember him playing in the bowl game after Charlie Brewer got hurt a couple of years ago against Georgia, and he really didn't do anything. And then I remember he came in against Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game as well, and they really didn't play well. Clearly, I guess he's improved since then, but I still really don't know what to make of Baylor. I might have to watch that game to kind of get a feel for them. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the I guess the marquee games. There's some odd games this year. I saw Wisconsin is playing Army. Like, what the hell is up with that game? Now that literally might be 10-0, the final score for that game. Like, both teams. I mean, Wisconsin's offense is hideous, and all Army does is run, and Wisconsin has the best run defense in the country. That game is going to be so ugly. I think over under is 39. I don't think I've ever seen that for a college game, or at least in recent memory. But yeah, it should be an interesting week. Like I said, sometimes on paper it doesn't always look great, but those might be the weeks that you get a lot of crazy finishes.
Oh, we always hear that from Ron. Ron always makes that point, and it's come to fruition a lot of times. It's really interesting. Interestingly enough, though, Penn State, Iowa, I think the over-under was 40 for that game, and they actually just got the over.
Yeah, you're right, and it just got there. I will say, I know you guys probably it was on mute in the bar that you were.
Way too many screens, though. Andy's right. Yeah. I can't get over that.
Gus Johnson, he was just going absolutely berserk. That guy could make a funeral entertaining. He was they threw that pass to the tight end. I thought he was just gonna completely lost his mind. He definitely made it entertaining just watching that game. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been if it was just who's a boring announcer on ESPN, like Sean McDonough or someone like that. It would not have made it as entertaining as Gus, for sure.
Yeah. Tony Pease, I give him a lot of credit for a lot of putting on all the games, but that was a real miss on their end. They didn't even have the USC game on any of the screens. They had 90 screens, and they didn't have a USC on any of them. It doesn't really matter because they were getting their ass kicked in that game anyway, but it still is weird that they had that game on 5 screens and then USC on none of them. That was bizarre. They have a ton of screens, Checker. You should see. Anyway, Andy, let's give it to you for what's ahead in this week's action.
Yeah, so it's funny. I'd be like Iowa, pick again, fade Iowa, but the fact that for a letdown situation, but the fact they're playing Purdue, I can't do that. So just stay away from that game. I think not Nick Holt, but the same guy basically. Jeff Brom is just a complete ooga booga cut in the Will Muschamp type of mode. I can't take Purdue seriously, and it's all because of that game against Notre Dame, that second week of September when they just couldn't take advantage of a clown Notre Dame school. But just scrolling down some of these other games, definitely be interested in Kentucky, Georgia, just to see how long this magic carpet ride for Kentucky can last. I don't think if they can still be in hailing distance with Georgia at halftime, I feel like they've done their job. But just looking at some of these, would you guys take maybe Missouri getting 9 from Texas A&M? Texas A&M might have a letdown spot. They, after all the elation of beating Alabama. Dave, you mentioned Texas Christian, TCU. It's weird. Patterson used to be known for defense first, but at this point, TCU in that Big 12, they've kind of more morphed into a 35-28 type of ball game than. Unless that Cheez-It Bowl against Cal notwithstanding, when I think the final score there was 6 or whatever. But yeah, it's Gary Patterson kind of does it a different way than what we were all kind of accustomed to. Just looking at some of these other games, yeah, I would say Arizona, because we'll talk about that later. But Arizona State, Utah would be a game worth watching. Even a game like Fresno State, Wyoming will be interesting. Why? Because Fresno State kind of gagged it 2 weeks ago at Hawaii, and you still need to kind of shape up that Mountain West, those Mountain West standings, see who's going to be representing the Mountain and the West respectively for their championship game. And Wyoming is, as John was in the building against UConn, like Chambers in that running game, I guess UConn kept it in check that one game, but it's weird. We bet against them the other day against Air Force. I feel like they probably, still a little bitter on that. Air Force got the job done there, but I feel like we might have had a bad beat there. I didn't see it, but I was following it on my phone. Oklahoma State, Texas will probably take Gundy and maybe regret that later. Let's look at Alabama. They'll try to get. See, I don't know. Do we hammer Alabama first half just because they want to get their crap out of their system against the clueless Mississippi State team? We'll find out. Florida LSU normally is a game that you probably would have had up on your score bug, but because of all the weirdness that LSU has gone through, it's definitely not as marquee as it is in years past. And yeah, confirmed Kentucky is undefeated as we thought. Lane Kiffin going back to Tennessee. That's kind of a SEC-centric big game, but Ole Miss only giving 2.5. Tennessee, I guess the best thing Tennessee could have done was bench the Michigan quarterback and got given the job to the Virginia Tech transfer, Herndon. It's just weird what these quarterbacks can do to impact a team's momentum. And then, the late night chase, boys, is going to be Hawaii, Nevada. And
I was looking at that, yeah.
That in some shape, way, or form.
That's interesting. I'm curious how you guys do either of you have it in picks before I ask you to handicap those?
Not on the program.
Not on the program? Okay.
Real
yeah,
life.
No, that I usually I staying away from that one for our purposes. But yes, the Arizona State Utah game, that's a 10:00 game too, or East Coast time. I'll definitely be into that one. As of right now, I don't know what to make of that game. I think USC's ineptitude might have inflated the perception of Utah a bit more than what they really are, because just 2 weeks ago, Brewer just quit the team and left the program. So they got this new guy in there, Cameron Rising. He looked pretty good, but USC is just not good. Right. And Arizona State, I'm not a huge fan of Herm, but that team is really good. They're very talented. So I would kind of lean towards Arizona State in that matchup if you're asking me now who I'm going to bet. And then the Hawaii Nevada game, I don't know. We'll have to. That's a pick that's made it 10:15 on Saturday night, depending on how the rest of the day went.
Love that. I'm sorry I didn't put that Arizona State game up there. I guess I should have. That is a good game. So my fault, y'all. Let's go to the picks then, and we'll start with Ron's picks, everybody. And Ron is. I'll say this: Ron's going to be in on one of the games we just talked about, but we'll figure out which one in just a second.
Yeah.
Let's go. All right, Ron. Let's hear it, Ron. Ron has these picks for Week 7. Oh, again. Oh, my goodness. I'm rusty. Okay. For Week 7 in college football, here are Ron's picks. It's delivered to me via the text. I actually had to talk to him a little bit about this. I had to make sure which game he was thinking of for game number 2. But game number 1 we figured out quickly. He's going to go with Ole Miss giving the 2.5. Of course, right? At Tennessee. Absolutely. Watch out for Tennessee. Not. I love it too. Ole Miss minus 2.5, game number 1. So game number 2, I thought he sent me +5. It wound up being actually plus 0.5. So he's going Arizona State getting half a point at Utah in that late night battle for the Pac-12. So I like that pick too. So the picks for Ron: Ole Miss minus 2.5 and Arizona State plus half a point for Week 7. All right. So now we go on to John in Connecticut. John, we're ready for your Week 7 picks when you are.
All right, Dave. I feel dirty picking this game, but because Andy's right what he said about Purdue and Iowa, but I can't turn down this letdown spot or just fading Iowa, giving 11.5 points. Like, are they even going to score that much in this game? Like, it legit could end 10-0. So I'm going to take Purdue plus 11.5. I'm seeing. Again, like the Iowa offense, we've talked about it so many times. They're just not explosive. They love going on these long 15-play, like just draining the clock drives. And sometimes it's ending in a field goal. Who knows? They're just not built to cover these large spreads. And, obviously they've had created a ton of turnovers this year. And some of that is obviously skill. And some of it is luck too. Like there's going to be some turnover regression here. And I, by no means am I a huge fan of Purdue. And I agree with what Andy said about Brom and a whole bit, but they're coming off a bye. Their defense has actually played pretty well this year. I know they haven't played some great opponents recently, but they've been playing well. They statistically they rank out pretty well in terms of like the advanced metrics. So this is just going to be your classic old-fashioned Big Ten, like 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of game. As long as Purdue just does not stupidly give the ball away, I think they can keep this within 10, like 20-10 or 20-13, something ugly like that. So I'll take Purdue plus 11.5 for the first game. In game 2, we're going to do a little Conference USA action here. We're going to take Old Dominion getting 13 points plus 13 at home against Western Kentucky. If you haven't seen this Western Kentucky defense, my God, it is just absolutely horrible. They can't stop the pass. They can't stop the run. They can't stop teams from scoring in the red zone. Other than that, it's pretty good. UTSA did whatever they wanted on Saturday night. Same thing with Michigan State and Indiana even put up 33 points on them. And Indiana is not a good offense this year. It's just not. It's horrible. Frankly. Their offense is tremendous. Like we talked about it in the previous show, they basically imported the entire Houston Baptist team and offensive coordinator in there, and their quarterback Zappi has been phenomenal. They're putting up all these points. It's just their defense is just so bad. So how can you trust a team on the road laying 13 points when they have literally one of the worst defenses in the country? Now, Old Dominion is not a very good team. I'm not going to say they are, but they've been playing a little bit better lately. They only lost by a touchdown against Marshall, and we know Marshall has a pretty high-powered offense, and they held Marshall to 20 points, which I think was a pretty good effort on their part. They lost to UTEP by 7. I mean, UTEP has improved this year. And then against Buffalo, they were down like 31-7, and they came back and almost won the game. They only lost by 1 point. So they're playing better. They were a team that didn't play last year because of COVID, along with UConn, New Mexico State. So they definitely started the year slow, but they're kind of starting to figure things out a little bit. If I look at their stats on D, they're not bad. They rank in the top 50 of like most of the advanced stat categories which you want to see. So I think they can slow down Western Kentucky just enough and score on this just hideous Western Kentucky defense. And then we know the back door is going to be wide open when you're playing a team like that. So give me Old Dominion plus 13 against Western Kentucky, and Purdue plus 11.5 are your 2 picks for college football week 7.
All right, John, thank you very much for those picks. Very, very, very interesting dig into the group of 5 this time out. That's pretty good stuff. All right, let's go to Andy, and let's get your picks for week 7.
Yeah, it's too bad Arkansas State and Western Kentucky aren't playing this year, because that would be like a Conference USA, Sun Belt, no defense type of game.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. Like, I hope they make a bowl game. Like, put that on Christmas Day. Like, let's go. Let's get that right now.
Yeah, that could be like, I forget what it's called now, but the bowl that used to be like in Detroit or Mobile, Alabama, one of those bowls. Anyway, yeah, the picks. Dave, thanks. Game number 1, a checker on a checker here. I forget who we took. I'm taking Arizona State. My rationale for this game is Arizona State. I know they lost to BYU, and I wish they didn't lose to BYU now. I mean, the Pac-12 is just like they are on like oxygen. They are on their last breath for like playoff relevancy because of what Oregon did against David Shaw. But and then because Arizona State, they could have been undefeated had they not lost to BYU, but they did. But ever since then, they've just been kind of on this roll. You know, they had their way against UCLA, and they looked pretty damn good against Stanford. And they're well-rounded. I think Daniels will be a pro at some point, and their defense is really good. You know, it's an outlier for the most part to kind of list the strength of a Pac-12 team as their defense. But Arizona State, they hit hard. They create turnovers. They got some really goofy turnovers against Stanford last week, but turnovers are turnovers. And yeah, it's like we love to make fun of Herm, but he got his team playing well. There's bigger clowns in the Pac-12 conference than Herm Edwards. We can list them all right now. Both two clowns in the state of Washington themselves. David Shaw, Chris Daubel. They're all right. We just named 4 right there. So yeah, I mean, the more the merrier. Give me Arizona. I want to see how far this Arizona State mojo can last. Give me Arizona State game number 1. Whatever. I saw Pick'em +1. Doesn't matter. They're winning outright. In game number 2, Dave, I'm going to take Washington State getting a 1.5 from Shaw. This is the people out here it's weird. It's Washington State beats Stanford every year, and they've beat them 4 years in a row. And then but then again, Stanford beats Washington every year. So, and then obviously Washington always has their way against Washington State in the Apple Cup. But for whatever reason, the David Shaw offense just doesn't see eye to eye with Washington State. We're gonna assume this happens again. Listen, I love making fun of Washington State. I love making fun of Stanford. And as we posted on the board about a month ago, I'm gonna bet on or against Stanford every game this year. My blood pressure is through the roof. My cholesterol sucks. My mental health isn't all that great. So at this point, this doesn't change anything. I'm just betting against Stanford. It's a social experiment. Sometimes, like last week, we took them getting the points against Arizona State. This week, we're betting against them, and then we'll be able to produce the results with our Shaw experience. Washington State, they looked like donkeys earlier in the year, but they've had a couple, 2 good wins under the belt recently. They beat Oregon State, and then they beat Cal on the road. Winning on the road at the Pac-12, still takes some skill, and they did. And so their coach is a clown. He's anti-vax or whatever, but he's not the one playing. His players are, and we all know our feelings. Everyone here knows our feelings with David Shaw. Yeah, I think it's just I can't believe they beat we can because Cristobal the clown, and of course David Shaw has to be like, well, I'm gonna make everyone smell my own poo. If I have to smell it, you guys have to smell it, and that's exactly what happened when he beat Oregon. It's like, man, that was the grenade that kind of blew up the Pac-12 playoff chances. But John's right. Like, Oregon is not. They were going to lose at some point anyway, but would have liked to see them lose to a more formidable opponent than Stanford.
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you for the pick, Sandy. I do have this one last. I do want to get your feel for Cal versus Oregon. So Cal at Oregon getting 13.5. How would you play that?
Well, like Oregon, I would say John made the answer better. Like their running back that got hurt probably was the best in the conference, and he's out for the year. And that quarterback so the running back's out, and then the quarterback, he wasn't good at BC, so they lack like their skill players, which is arguably their best strength of that team. Like they're shorthanded there. Now Cal, they're a defensive operated team. Their quarterback was so bad against Washington. Or against Washington State. Like I don't see how you can play worse than he did. But that game, I would probably take Cal getting all those points if I had to bet it.
Love it. All right, Andy. Well, good luck to your picks, of course, as well. And thanks very much for sending those in and making them on the air. Let's go to my picks. I also, by the way, would take Cal in that scenario because I think the defense is pretty decent for
I
the
agree,
Bears.
Dave. I'll make it a 3 for 3.
Oh, nice.
I'll take Cal with the points. I don't love it. They've been a disaster this year, but I just can't trust Oregon laying that many points with what they got going on. So Cal for me as well.
Love
if you can
it.
buy the hook to like 14, that's even more ideal.
It's very interesting, right? Because you figure it's going to be a lower scoring game anyway, so I think it's a good call. Yeah, I love that. Okay, let's go to the picks. And I'm all about it. It's almost tempting enough to put it in the picks, but no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not this time at least. I'll put it in there somewhere, though, somewhere else. Let's go. All right, here are my picks for week number 7. Let me get dramatic. I'm going to use the dramatic music tonight. Okay, so week 7, here we go. So, the letdowns is going to be the theme of the entire weekend for college football and pro football. So, we talked about the Red River game in our recap segment. And really, to me, it amounts to something very simple. It was trying to depict which side of that game I wanted to fade for the purpose of the podcast. Well, the truth is, I'm going to pick both of them. I'm going to fade them both. I'm going to fade Oklahoma and Texas together. But for the show, what am I going to pick? I'm going to take the team with more points. So I'm going to go TCU getting 13.5 at Norman. After a game in which, John alluded to this, they must be exhausted after scoring like 40 such points and having such a huge game and that massive finish at the end and all the fans. I mean, it was a really exciting game. They had to rally from 20 points back to win the game. What are they going to have left for against TCU? No one's talking about TCU. Who the hell knows what TCU is? Well, I still know that Gary Patterson coaches that team, so I think they'll be pesky. So we're going to go, even though I don't really know anything about TCU, but I did see that they were 500. However, I know a little bit more about Oklahoma, and their quarterback situation is pretty unstable. So all in all, I think I'll take the points. TCU plus 13.5. The game number 2 is one I really love. I'll tell you what, people have been talking up this team all month long, and everybody thinks, they just ascended to number 1. Here we go. They're going to start to steamroll in the SEC. I say no. I say that Georgia's finally found a team that has defense as good as theirs. And that team would be Kentucky, getting 23 on the road at Athens. I just think that Georgia is offense, especially with Pickett or whoever their backup guy is not that good. I'm going to take Kentucky. I get burned on this a lot. I think I pick against Georgia a lot over the years. But I really do think that Kentucky's defense is for real. So I'm going to give it a chance. They're getting more than 3 touchdowns. So I'm going to go Kentucky plus 23 at Georgia to go along with TCU plus 13.5 for week 7. And I'll need it because I was 0-4 last week. So away we go. Okay, so now let's go to the guest picks. And those guest picks come from Tom in New Jersey. And here they are. Okay, so Tom has these picks for college football. Let's see if he's paying attention to sport these days. He's going to go... Oh, my God. John, and you're going to appreciate this. Virginia Tech getting 5 versus Pitt. Oh, I don't know, Tom. That might not be the best pick there. But I mean, hey, listen, it might happen. I'll leave it as is. Virginia Tech plus 5. Texas minus 5 is the second pick at home against Oklahoma State. So he will go head-to-head with me in that second game. So to repeat, Tommy is taking Virginia Tech plus 5 and Texas minus 5. Just good luck though, Tom. I'm serious. I don't mean to make fun of your picks, but I just, after what John was saying about Virginia Tech, it's hard. And not only that, but isn't Fuente like on the hot seat too? Like, I don't know if that's worth. I just think it's really, really dicey to bet on that right now. Don't you think? Anyway, John, I'll give it to you for final thoughts.
Yeah, it should be another great weekend. Like, it hasn't been disappointing this year. I think just the whole atmosphere of just having fans back in the stadium and just everything kind of back to, knock on wood, normalcy. Like, I know it's, we're still having the effects of COVID here and there. In terms of the sports world anyway, it's certainly very much an effect still in our lives. But I just think, having fans back and just non-conference games and just the semblance of a normal season, it just has been very much enjoyable for both college football and the NFL, and hoping to keep it going. So I'll just mention a couple things. I'm very excited about my state is now part of the legal betting landscape. I'm very excited about that. So yeah, I know. I feel bad for you in California, Dave. I don't know when that's going to happen. If they got bigger problems out there, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I was part of it's officially launching next week, but I was able to get into one of the sites for like a quote soft launch. Mm-hmm. So I've been, it's only open for like 4 hours a day, but I've been, making some bets.
That's great. John,
very nice deposit bonus. So you're basically playing on bonus money to start off with. So, not playing with my money, which is, you can't get better than that. So that's very exciting. I mentioned to Dave before we started that I was waiting to see after my Vegas trip in terms of like spending money and those kind of things. So that all worked out. So I'm actually going to be attending the Green Bay Washington game next Sunday. So that should be a lot of fun. You got to get into the last dance if this is it for Rodgers and Green Bay. I did go to a game in 2015, but had to go back to see if it, if this is really it, and if it ends up being a special year, I got to be there for it. The third thing, Dave and Andy are playing in my Pick'em League this week, so I'm very much looking forward to following that matchup this Sunday. So those are my final thoughts as we depart for the night.
May the best picks win, Andy and John. That'll be a really fun matchup, Andy. But before I go to Andy, John, are you going to be taking your talents to like the FanDuel Sportsbook app once that gets...
Yeah, so here what we have is it's a little different than some states. I know some states just like completely opened it up to like all sorts of books, like 10 or 12 books. Like here, we only have there's one book associated. I don't know if anybody's listening or watching that understands Connecticut. Like we have two major casinos here run by the tribal nations. So one casino, Mohegan Sun, partnered with FanDuel Sportsbook. One casino, Foxwoods Casino, partnered with DraftKings. And then the state lottery contracted out to partner with, it's called Play Sugar House is the name of the sports book. It's same as Bet Rivers, just branded differently if anyone's familiar with Bet Rivers. So those are the three options that I have to wager. So what I'll probably do is just, I have some money on the two FanDuel and DraftKings accounts. So I'll probably could just kind of, maybe either do a small deposit or just take advantage of the boost they have there. And then for the soft launch, I was able to get onto the state lottery one, that the Play Sugar House one. So that has been interesting so far to just kind of mess around with that. So yeah, so there's three options here, and it's funny because I think the other two are actually doing a soft launch. I wasn't able to get on it, but FanDuel had like this crazy boost yesterday. The Brewers and Braves to score 2 runs total, and usually that was a minus 1,000 prop, and they were offering it for plus 100. I was ready to put like my whole account on it, and of course I wasn't one of the lucky few to be able to do that, but I'm sure in time I'll get some of those those nice boosts. So it's definitely very exciting, and our state is reaching the we're in the 21st century essentially, and people might actually want to come here now to make some bets. I could see people like in New York City like just driving right over and getting their bets in. So definitely exciting times. And I'm very much happy of not having to deal with some of those offshore sites that we're familiar with. Just not good, like worrying about getting your money and whatnot. So
yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. So kudos to Connecticut. Way to go. Good job, everybody. Do the dance. Great job. Good job out of them. So let's go to Andy and let's get your final thoughts as well.
Yeah, final thoughts. The Pick'em. So Pick'em contest. Good luck, Dave. It's a crapshoot. You have a lot more points than me, but I've just been, I've been given kind of like the Denver Broncos schedule, like 2-5 somehow beats 6-1, 3-4 beats 3-4, but because I picked 49 out of my ass and the guy picked 53 and the final score was 24-21, it's just, but you gotta. It's gonna go when it goes the other way. You commiserate. When it goes this way, it happened. We got a long way to go. This tournament goes like basically up and past Christmas now with the extra week, but it'll be fun. Quick hit number 2 out of 3 is silly season in golf is the second week in Vegas. I wish. I'm sure I could look it up. Like just download a roster of the guys that are. that were in the Vegas event last week and the Vegas event this week, and be like, oh, that guy is definitely on a bender or eating fucking buffets and steak every night in Vegas. What else are you gonna do out there? Maybe work on the golf game too. But yeah, I'll keep an eye on the CJ Cup. If it's, I would assume it's at the same course as last. No, it's actually not Summit. That's a bummer because the course that they played it at last year, that might have been the Zozo. I don't know. I know there's. I gotta do some research because the last year one of the Vegas events was at this sick course.
It was at Shadow Creek, actually. Now that I'm remembering it.
Yeah,
in Vegas.
Shadow Creek. It doesn't even
that was a
look
nice
like
course.
It like your typical desert golf course characteristics were not existent there because everything was like kind of like imported. It's just like they had like.
They're saying the same thing about this one. It's like. Yeah, lush, like it's all green. It's like it's a Fazio course, so like there's no desert, like into the routing at all. So that's like who you have to look for, like who plays the Fazio course as well. So that's kind of what I was been reading.
Nice. I'll definitely be making some head-to-head daily wagers on that. Like last week, I took Scotty Scheffler to beat Webb Simpson, and Scotty missed the cut. Bad job on me. And quick hit number 3 about the state gambling. Washington has it, but as of now, it's just it's confined to the tribal casinos, and for whatever reason, only one of them has it operational. And but it's only 25 minutes from my house, and so what I've been doing, like a degenerate clown, I entered in this pick'em contest where there's no spread. You just pick the outright winners. You have to be on the property to partake. No Monday night game, no Thursday night game. No, the Monday night game you pick, but you don't. No Thursday game, no London game. So as long as you make your picks by Sunday morning, you're in good shape. And I just go because it's 25 minutes from my house. Like I might even go there tonight after this. And they know they're getting you because you have your club card. You get two $40 free plays on the slot. So like the first one's Monday to Wednesday and the second one is Thursday to Sunday. And it's like, come get your free play, make your picks on our silly phone, and then bit your rear end off because you have no self-control. It's so close to home. It's 25 minutes away. I can go on my lunch break. I can, it's just something to do. And they know, by offering these $40 free plays twice a week, people are gonna lack the mental fortitude to not go dip into the wallet and spend their own money. But eventually there's going to be more like sports books open at the other tribal casinos, and they better reach a compromise like Connecticut and open it up so we can all bet from our phones and we don't have to be on casino property.
Yeah, right. Word up on that. That's an interesting conversation too. Like, will they open it up to the mobile sites? So some are very stodgy about you have to be at the casino to do it and blah blah blah. We'll see, because that creates some interesting scenarios. Guys, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you very much. We had covered a lot tonight, so I really appreciate you hanging out with me and doing all the picks. And good luck, everybody. Hopefully your picks go well this weekend. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, we got a lot of sports coming up.
Yeah, it should be a fun weekend. Good luck, guys. Hopefully we can get a few better breaks than last weekend, that's for sure.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah. All right, take care, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks. Good luck, everyone.
Hey, good luck. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Peace.
All right, so that's our show tonight. Annie, John, both did a tremendous job. So good to see everybody. And thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. If you missed any part of it, you can catch the replay right here on YouTube if you're watching visually, or if you're listening on the podcast. We're glad you're subscribed to us. The podcast replays are also available at DITCOW.com, in addition to Apple Podcasts and your podcast player of choice. So I wish you well. Good luck to all your picks. We hope we gave you good advice, and good luck to all your scenarios with football, whatever they may be. It should be another interesting weekend of football for sure. I see nothing that would really make it not so. So I say goodnight for now. I'm Dave Medina. You can catch us on the web. I think I mentioned all the scenarios at DITCOW on Twitter, website DITCOW.com, and then earlier I talked about where you can find us on YouTube and on podcasts. So we'll see you next week, hopefully. If not, then we'll take a break and talk and get back to you the week after. But until that point, we'll see you next time.